Today in Bible videos, we're gonna learn about the story of the wisdom of King Solomon. Are you ready to know more about it? So let's get started. For 40 years, King David had ruled the people of Israel. When the time came for him to die, he called his son Solomon to his bedside and he gave the rule of the kingdom into his hands. It was a heavy task for the young prince, for Israel was a great nation, but his father reminded him that the Lord would give him wisdom and understanding. David said, "There is much work for you to do, my son, but above all, don't forget to walk in God's ways and obey His commandments." It was a happy day for the people of Israel when Solomon was made king. Trumpets blew and the people shouted. Solomon was a good king, and remembering his father's words, he asked God to guide him. One night, the Lord appeared to Solomon and said, "Ask what I shall give you." Solomon was filled with wonder, but he did not hesitate. He asked the Lord that he wanted to be a good, upright king, just like his father David, but he did not know how to rule a great nation. So he asked God to give him wisdom to do what was right. God was very pleased when Solomon asked for wisdom rather than riches and promised him great wisdom and an understanding heart. God also promised to bless Solomon with honor and wealth if he obeyed his commandments. Solomon realized that truly the Lord had spoken to him and he praised God. He said, "Happy is the man that finds wisdom and understanding." And soon Solomon's new wisdom was put to the test. One day, two women were ushered into the court and stood before the king. They were crying and quarreling. One was holding a baby in her arms. The other woman pointed to her and said, "This woman has taken my child. She rolled on her own son in the night and smothered him. Then she took my child and put the dead one beside me." "That's not true," the second woman shouted. "This child is mine and the dead one is hers." "No, the child is mine," the first woman said to the king. King Solomon looked at them, and they stopped arguing. Everybody in the court was quiet, waiting to hear what King Solomon would say. He looked at one of his soldiers and said, "Bring me a sword." Then the women and all the people looked at him in surprise. Quickly, a soldier sprang forward, his sword bared. Then the king said, "Divide the living child into two and give half to one and the other half to the other." Then he watched the two mothers closely. The first woman shrugged. She said, "That's fair enough. Then the child will be neither mine nor hers." But the other woman threw herself at the king's feet and cried, saying, "Oh, my lord king, do not kill the child. I'd rather you give him to the other woman than kill him." Now Solomon knew the answer. He said, "Give her the child," for the king knew that she was the real mother. King Solomon was talked about in all the land because he was kind and just, wiser than any king before him, and all his people were happy. And Solomon built a magnificent temple for the praise and worship of God. He also built courts and palaces in Jerusalem. His fame spread far and wide. In the distant court of Sheba, in southern Arabia, merchants told their queen of the wealth and wisdom of Solomon, but she could hardly believe their stories, and now she wanted to see him for herself. So she traveled 1,000 miles across the harsh desert, followed by camels bearing gifts for the king, which include gold, spices, and jewels. At last, she stood in Solomon's magnificent court. There were many things she wanted to see and many questions she wanted to ask this wise man. And Solomon showed her temple where his people worshipped God and took her to see his palace. As the queen of Sheba sat at Solomon's table and listened to him, she realized that his people loved and served him because he was a wise and good king. She said, "Happy are you men, happy are your servants that hear your wisdom." But Solomon knew that his wealth and earthly possessions would not last forever, for he said, "Riches make themselves wings." And Solomon knew that the magnificent temple, which had taken thousands of men 7 years to build, and his palace of carved stone, the jeweled courts, the ivory throne, and all the riches of his great kingdom would pass away someday, and the glory of Solomon has long since departed. But the wisdom God gave him survived the passing years and has been strengthened with each test of time. And today we can find blessing in the wisdom of God as spoken by his servant Solomon, for the wisdom which has been recorded is in the book of Proverbs. He that has friends must show himself friendly. A wise son hears his father's instructions. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. Solomon's greatest treasure was the wisdom that God had given him. The Bible tells us that we can find true wisdom too by believing in the Lord Jesus Christ and following him. For we read that in him are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. The end. And I hope you had fun learning the story of the wisdom of Solomon. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more Bible videos. Bye.